before I leave, I'll just introduce you to Sasha's things up there. We made this film, but I remember Sasha came on set as a relatively young man on a film called A Man Without a Face, Mel Gibson's first directing effort in the States. I was shooting it, and you know, he was sort of attached to it and observing, and he's been on set of several times over the years, and we've discussed several scripts that he's written, and finally, you know, like all young directors, wannabe directors, he decided to that he was ready to go, and of course we had no money, and totally to Sasha's organisational and conning ability, we ended up with a Varicam with a codec back on the back of it, a good set of Panavision lenses, and fundamentally one LED light that I bought out of electric shop for about $100. And that was basically the lighting of the film. One exterior you'll see tonight, Susan Lumsden, who was also worked on the film, bought a few other lights, and a few other people had lights in their car, and we lit a reasonably, for us, a big area. The crew was basically a pickup every day. I had Alexa, the operator, most of the time. The design person was there most of the time, and various focus pullers had come, sound people had come. God knows how Sasha got them there, but every day we had enough people to shoot, and we shot. Basically, Sasha said, we'll do it in 4 weeks. I said, Sasha, don't think of a schedule. Be no budget, no schedule. And we did shoot it in 6 weeks and a few days. We spent a couple of days pickups, I must admit, over this week. But the film, by the way, I'm as proud of it as any film I've shot. Most times we used the practical lights were there. Maybe we'd change a couple of bulbs because, you know, with the LEDs and the old bulbs that were there and all the rest of it was a bit confusing. And the only light I ever really used would be bouncing this LED off a wall or something, just to get a little something to make it look, I say professional, but it is, just have a look at it anyway, and realise exactly under the situation it was shot. And I think if somebody was paying a lot of money, it wouldn't be that much different in result. But we've got it a different way, mostly due to the camera. G'day.
Go, Sasha.
So this whole journey started because I went to the 35 and saw Tucker, and I was just sitting there and I was thinking, now the timing's out for this camera. But I was hearing Tucker talk about his camera, and I felt a strong connection because he's there trying to sell his camera and I'm trying to sell myself as a director, and the timing was out for both of us. And so there's sort of like this connection that sort of grew from there. But the one thing, I have a friend another friend who's cutting a lot of films in the States, and the thing is that we've spoken a bit and we've done about 4K and 2K, and there was a lot of discussion about that. The one thing that we all have an advantage with low budget films is that the bigger films can't afford, a lot of the bigger films can't afford to do 4K because the special effects are too expensive. So there's a lot of arguments with a lot of bigger DPs and bigger filmmakings that no 2K, you know, arguing for 2K. But as a low budget filmmaker, we can't afford any special effects. So 4K is kind of we can use 4K to our advantage, and as sort of Netflix and Apple now, there's 4K and everyone's got their 4K screens. To me, it was the big thing was 4K, and the two things that I felt we could cut an incredible amount of corners is by shooting RAW and the 5000 ISO, as well as the 5000 RAW. And it's true, the film's eventually going to be compressed anyway, but I'm going to try not to talk too much, so that, because we're going to do a live grade, and Don hasn't actually tried grading some of these shots yet, so I'll show you a little bit, and they've got a few shots that we can actually grade, and you can sort of see what you have to your advantage with RAW.
The little tests we've done with the gentleman here, grading, have really blown me away. The 4K opens a world we haven't seen yet in grading. It is just a whole new box of tricks, and the results are really just blew my mind away. But anyway, see all that.
So yes, so the what I've been just cutting with is just just a basic codec, and that's what I'll show. I'll show you a little clip of that, and then we can show and with the grade. I think, yeah, like Don said, I had what's on you. I had an idea for I had made this sort of connection, and we were talking about doing, and I was madly trying to write a script, and then my partner Tim and I went to Beijing to see my friend who was working on the Great Wall over there, and I kind of Zhang Yimou was directing that film, and we watched some of his other films, and there was another film that really inspired me to continue working on another idea I had. So I sort of came back, and we were all moving forward and everything. But I think I had the confidence. I knew I had the script there, but the thing was we were all getting together, but I hadn't actually had a script yet. but it's working out. I think it's quite good. But I'll show you that clip.
It's a big lighting day.
Oh my goodness, Liba! Is it really you?
Yes, it's really me.
Liba!
Oh, hello, Justin. Oh, it's wonderful to see you.
Look at you. Look at us. We've turned into a couple of old ladies.
Oh, but very graciously.
Girls seem happy to see each other again, don't they?
Shame our differences kept them apart.
Right, what's that?
This is for you.
Oh, Liba. Why did you do that? Let's go inside.
Care for a beer?
Wouldn't say no. We're not staying around here a minute longer with these dickheads. Come on, we're going. Come on, we're going.
Justin, say something.
Duncan, you're an idiot, a deadbeat, and a fucking loser. Okay?
Liba, I'll call you soon. We'll stay in touch.
No, you won't. You'll stay out of our fucking lives.
I'm so sorry.
What happened?
Now this is probably the best road stuff I've ever done. There is no lights. Camera guy in the back, Sasha doing the recording in the other seat, and it's all practical lights from the street.
Now you bring it back into my life and you rip it
I've spent hours trying to imitate this and never got anywhere near it.
Yeah, Baselight's actually the name of the system, the company's Filmlight. What we've done is we've taken all the 4K raw footage into the Bakelite system, because ultimately it will be graded on Bakelite. I've just brought along a couple of clips here, and they won't play back very well because we're playing back the 4K, uncompressed 4K raw off a USB drive on an old MacBook, so they're not going to play back very smoothly. But the idea really is just to show you what you saw just there was obviously the proxy files, which were just a fairly crude LUT-based conversion. The shots you saw were just straight out of the Avid. They've not been color corrected because they were just cut from the proxies. So the level, the exposure level was literally what comes out of the camera when it does its own conversion to Rec. 709. Because, as Don was explaining, a lot of it was shot at 5,000, the exposure was not consistent isn't the right word, but
you can say inconsistent.
okay, all right. It means that what you see in the viewfinder and the on-set monitoring, and of course what you then end up editing with, is going to vary a lot more than you might expect, just because you've got an awful lot more range to play with when you're actually recording raw. So what we've got in here is the original raw footage that came straight out of the camera. And in the first instance, I'm literally just using Bakelite to do its own conversion between the Vlog V-Gamut color space and Rec. 709. So what you'll see on the screen here is close to what you would have seen, albeit obviously not compressed and coming from the 4K master. But because behind that we've got the original full dynamic range, the full 14.5 stops that was captured on the camera, we can pull all that detail back in again. We can do whatever we like with it. And because it's 4K, it's also, it gives you a bit more freedom to actually start blowing the image up a bit. And I know, I don't know if Sasha's going to talk about this, but there are a few shots where, just for reframing, there's a lot more freedom that you get when you're shooting at 4K rather than 2K. So I think, I don't know, should we have a look at these and see what we can do with them?
I'd love to see it timed.
So
I'd like to get rid of
First of all, the big thing for Don was seeing the blowout. So the big thing here, when we were looking, if we can move the slate board out of the way. So we're going to see a few shots where the windows are just blown out, and the question is, well, how much detail is there really? So the first thing, I guess, if you want to, so take it back so you can see now. Behind there, the window's sort of blown out. It was actually even more blown out in what I was cutting with.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult because if I switch it so that's full screen, then I won't be able to see it on the monitor here. So,
right.
So you just have to kind of work with that space there. But you can see there's a little bit more detail in the window than there was on the actual proxy on the cards. But we can actually just just by basically bringing down the overall exposure, you can see that all that is quite clearly
Green
visible
trees.
in there. So for grading this shot, rather than bringing down the whole shot, we can basically just bring down the lighter parts. So you can bring in
as you probably or may not be. I always expose to mid-range, even though I know that I might want to take it down later on, because I know I've got the range to play with. In other words, I try to include both ends, even though in the final film I might sacrifice one end.
if you look at this display here, this is actually this particular grading tool on Bakelite. We've calibrated this in stops relative to the grey reference, and as Don said, you can see here 0 is pretty much where the exposure level is sitting for that shot.
Bob, why don't we go to this shot where she's got all the windows completely open?
Don, what exposure tools do you use on set?
I use the monitor, the histogram, but most of the time the monitor. If it looks good, shoot it. Yeah, really, and you know, if there's any question, we do go through the various checks built into the camera. But yeah, I mean, this is amazing. It's just a single shot.
We've got so we've got cropped top and bottom.
Yeah, the
well.
hot roof's not in, so.
So, yeah, there's a lot in those windows there that you can still access. It's actually just started to click. You can just see on the waveform there.
Oh,
very
yeah.
bright parts are actually just they are genuine.
That's in
flickers,
there.
but
In that, there's
yeah, you know they're way up there. And of course, it depends how much detail you actually want to see outside the window.
Yeah, great.
So what do you have for lights in the room then? Anything?
I may have had my LED bouncing back on this wall, you know, in the room. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's there, just bouncing back into there. But you know, you can read all the flesh tones. Everything's there that we want, and you know, there's this scene goes from curtains being opened, so it's just one of those sort of potential nightmarish situations you're confronted with, where you get the massive light change, but it really, you know, the 14 stops plus. Came in, and I genuinely believe the 4K seems to have given me more access to that 14 stops. I don't know whether that's logical or not, but it appears that way.
the other thing you do a lot, Don, is putting windows and this.
Yeah, we've got all our tricks still to come.
So yeah, I think everyone here probably knows.
Yeah, the old vignetting, the first trick I learnt in digital. And so much, you know, and I guess most people in this room would be doing the same. I'm lighting for the digital timing. In other words, I know that when I get to the timing, I can correct a lot of lighting that would virtually sometimes be impossible to do physically, and you'd probably destroy the scene totally by trying to get it lit perfectly in this situation. You know, it's just a no-brainer to know that you've got that coming up. And of course, the big advantage is when you get to my point in your career, the fact that producers get upset about what it looks like is just something you don't take any notice of.
Yeah,
I'm financially quite secure, and you know, I got enough work to keep me going. So it you know, and so you just don't have to suffer fools like you did early in your career. See, this is starting to get knocked into some sort of shape. Virtually, you know, a basically impossible scene lit against against this, you know, with absolutely minimal lighting just coming off that wall. I can see where the light's coming from. It is over there. Yeah, back behind that piece of wood. You can see cupboard or whatever it is.
How did the older cast feel about not being lit?
The whole essence of the film is they are old people. Yeah. And I think they all understood that. There's no pretense to glamorise them one little bit. And that's the essence of the film, I think, to a degree.
We had really minimal makeup on them. There's a scene where she puts makeup on, and you see it, and you understand the drama of that, and you can see just by seeing her that she's trying to look beautiful. But the lines and stuff, we saw that as something like looking at a beautiful piece of wood or something. You know, the lines and everything was something we kind of championed.
We could actually tell in the camera by fiddling around that there was some detail outside that window. I don't think it came up in our monitor. I actually prefer, for composition and compositional impact, to use as big a monitor on a job as I can. Of course, we couldn't afford anything like the thing we're looking at here. On Ali's wedding, I went out and bought a 48-inch 4K monitor, for $1,000, and used it on set. It was bugger to lug around, but I didn't have to do it. And for me, perpetually looking at a small image is a real problem. I think, in actual fact, looking at small images in editing for many years has actually diminished the impact of cinema in the value of the really wide, impactful shot is often overlooked because it never has the impact on the smaller monitor that films are often edited on. So I've seen them editing on a 2-foot monitor for a film that's going to go out on a 40, 50-foot screen. And even way back in the film days, I used to go into the editing and I'd say, look, please incorporate this shot. And he'd put it up and he said, it looks like shit. I said, but go into a bloody cinema and have a look at what this shot really is saying. And 9 times out of 10 it'd end up in the movie. But so I think, you know, to make really the emotional connection to the shot, you want as big a monitor as you can lug around on, get somebody to lug around on set. And
I heard the director of American Beauty, Spielberg had told him to cut out little faces to put at the bottom of the monitor to remind you that it's a cinema. You know, like
yeah, it is. Yeah. And actually, you can see the bloody sunlight on the floor to show you that we didn't have much working for us.
Yeah. Do you want to show the your shot, the first one you've got up there,
that's
fruit shot?
Yeah.
So the fruit shop's a similar thing where.
Now, just one before you go away.
Oh.
Just if I had a whole crew, and an 8, 9, 10-week shoot, I keep questioning myself, what could I have got better in this scene? I really do look at it and think, I probably would have screwed it up by using all the lights I had. And I think, that's digital world, and now this 5,000 digital world really does open up a whole creative area. Some people come and say, but isn't this diminishing your craft, your prestige? And I don't think so. It's just another tool to start to express yourself in a much more flexible, loose, and fundamental way. Yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah. Just sort of following up on this shot, as you say, you know what could you have done to improve it? I don't think you could have done anything to improve it.
You're on the next one.
So, but you did also say that on set you couldn't actually tell that there was. You could sense there was something through the windows, but you couldn't see it like this.
No.
Because you weren't able to actually view the raw footage from the camera because it hadn't been effectively processed. But the next step, and if I'm involved in the next film, what I would like to try doing is to use the kind of next step in the technology, if you like, which is to basically do what we're doing here. We're using raw footage which was copied from the camera onto my laptop, but to actually take that raw footage, and the Varicam, I think the latest firmware in the Varicam supports the ability to download a LUT into the camera, which means that you can, obviously the normal output from the camera is either Vlog or Rec 709. Either way, you don't have any control over that. It's fixed. It's something that's designed into the camera. But with the internal LUT, you can actually put any kind of conversion you like in there, including this. So I could take the grade that I've created for this shot here, I could download it into the Varicam. So what you would have coming out of the feed on the Varicam would be Rec 709 to feed into this monitor. But rather than being the straight vanilla Rec 709 conversion, it would include the grade for this shot. Now, I'm not suggesting that you would go through every single shot that you're going to shoot and do a test and a grade for the movie, but if you have a little bit of time when you're actually doing the tests that you do, where you're kind of obviously using a meter and using your experience to know where to expose it, but if at the same time you have some of these shots just as preset LUTs and you just push a button, pushes them into the camera, you can then flick over and you get a much clearer idea as to what you're actually going to get at the end of the day, because it's doing that conversion from the raw directly inside the camera through a specially designed lookup table that you've created. And these are tools that we're now developing that are available for this sort of workflow. Even on a no-budget movie, it doesn't really take a lot more time. It's just a matter of, I think, making that extra step in the technology, the sort of next step in the process.
Someone used to have, I'm not sure if you'll have on this other one, a photographer that would take a photo, load it on the computer, and then show what the time, what it will look like.
Oh, that's what I used to do in the film world.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing that since Canon 30 came out. Well, D30.
This kind of wraps the whole thing up, closes the loop, puts it in the camera for you, so you don't need that extra person. You know, and as I said, the tools, they're becoming available.
And of course, but the truth is, we rarely get good monitors like this on the set too.
No, that's right. So
that's the other. And you know, in the hurly-burly of shooting, there's a lot to be said to, in your judgment, get the widest widest range you can get, irrespective of what it looks like, right? Yeah. And know that that's going to give you the best opportunity to and that's basically the philosophy I've used on ever since I've started shooting digital, is really almost avoid trying to get an end result because it's sort of double distracting. You know, it'll look good on the monitor, it looks good enough on the monitor, you know you've exposed it within the correct doesn't matter, but you've exposed it in loosely termed the mid-range, and don't waste any more energy on it. See, I've seen people on a set just consumed by almost
trying
doing
to get
what
that
you're
extra
doing,
half a
playing
stop.
with the bloody thing, and all they're doing is really wasting shooting time. In my opinion.
I just would add to that though. It's great if you've got the luxury of a camera that can capture those 14 and a half
would
stops.
be a good idea.
But if you're restricted, say, down to 13 or even 12 stops, then that extra couple of stops.
Well, you've got the wrong camera.
You've
got the wrong camera, boy.
Anyway, let's move on to the next.
Do you want to show the fridge shot?
Yeah.
So this was a editing this. She walks out of the fruit shop, and what we could see, what I could see in editing was just totally overexposed street.
Now this didn't look as bad in the monitor, but down the street there.
Yeah. So that's just the raw ungraded.
Do we see a bit more street if we go on?
Yeah, if you go,
you're right down into Burnoutsville. Yeah, there. Yeah, that's it.
Now, what I was cutting with, that's all actually worse than that. It's overexposed.
Yeah, because this is kind of converting from the raw, whereas yours came from the proxy on the camera, which would have been sitting at a different exposure level. So I did actually put a. That's just simply. All I've done there is a simple adjustment of the exposure.
And for me, this like that may not seem much to you, but for me, it's extraordinary because, like, if you come up close, you can see all this here. What I've been seeing editing is completely overexposed.
Yeah.
All down there.
So that's what I've done there. And then I did.
So really, by shooting with raw, we didn't need to worry about that. Otherwise, we'd be trying to, I don't know what, if it was a...
In retrospect, it might have been better if we closed down a stop and a half, but we didn't.
Actually, the numbers on here, as I said, this is calibrated in stops, so that's 1.7 stops. So a stop and a half would have been
okay.
pretty much spot on, I'd say.
That was well rehearsed.
There you go, that's a stop and a half down.
Yeah, okay,
So
all right. I got to leave you something.
So there's two other shots. Rob, how much time have we got? Because we want to...
Are you guys happy to keep going with this for another 5-10?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go to the night shot that we saw before.
This one,
Yeah, really that car shot was one of the most inspirational.
Oh, sorry, do you mean this one?
No, but we've seen that, but it was
Okay, go
just
to the car
amazing
shot.
to.
In the car, isn't it?
This is a tracking shot. No lights
Look at the
whatsoever
one where
except
you
the
see
practical.
the service station in the background.
See, I've had lights on
Somewhere.
bloody clotheslines spinning around and all sorts of gizmos going on, and they all look like crap. And this just looks totally, absolutely
Up a
real.
little
A bit
bit.
up or something.
Yeah,
Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway.
yeah.
There it went. There.
There it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what
It
we
is.
want to do.
No, I
Here's the thing too.
I don't know
how
what
much
we'll do with
colour-
that,
How much can you? How
don't know what you'd do to make it.
could you get rid of the sodium? Is that how much colour's in there mixed in with that?
So it's quite,
Can you get a skin tone still out of that?
let's see. So let me
In truth, Sasha, dramatically, I think those colours. This is a real argument, isn't it, in the car?
Yeah.
Yep, we probably can get a bit more.
We
Truth
shot
back.
we shot. It was interesting. We did a Mardi Gras film last year with a few of the Varicams, and there was in the sodium vapor area. It was amazing how much we could actually neutralize that and bring the colours out. This is really harsh here. I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to see if we could still manage to get a skin tone like back to the. Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
pull out quite a lot.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm seeing something different on this to what you're seeing on
Yeah.
there. That's removed most of the...
Yeah, no, that's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Was this 5,000?
Yes. Oh, yes.
And just one, but yeah, Rob said that before. The thing is that the test that we did, one of the after, I think it was in the first week of Ollie's wedding, we went down into to test the grain difference between 5,000. So we shot the same. We shot exactly the same image with 5,000 with 800, and with a minimal kind of noise reduction. You really couldn't pick it. So that's the other thing that you have at this end, is to be able to add or reduce noise. And sometimes you sometimes you actually like that sort of noise look as well. So
yeah,
there's too much grain in there.
No denoise it.
But we could actually denoise that.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to, not that you would want to, if the service station was important, you could probably get more detail out of that.
It's focus out there a bit too.
Bring that if you brought that.
Okay.
So that's
And
anyway, should we go on to the drone? So we'll just do the drone shot. So this was with the EVA1. We had Glenn here.
The emulsion's not dry on this shot.
Glenn, do you want to say anything about the? How was it?
What would you like me to say?
How was the drone? How was the camo to go on a drone?
Oh, it was great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It was nice and light and very easy to balance. So you can see. Oh.
Well, that's the 4K jumping along. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually.
It was much smoother on the drone than what
That's what they all say.
Again, it's trying to play back a 4K shot off the USB drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not the USB 3.1, no?
So what would you want to do with this, Don?
You're the director. I'll leave you on this one.
I mean, that's not graded at all.
No.
It looks pretty nice, actually.
Bit of contrast about all it needs.
Yeah. The big story element here is swimming pools and the car.
Yeah.
Like just flying over these houses that everyone's got their own personal swimming pool. Is it kind of like a I think that was my key direction for Glenn when we did this. I want to see as many swimming pools as possible.
See, as you know, this is a great part of 4K too. As this is probably going to be released 2K, you could start a 50% zoom on the car if you wanted to. Although Sasha would want to stay out and see the swimming pools with which he's obsessed.
We might say that again.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah. Just take that back to the.
Yeah.
No. Leave the grade. Leave what you had. The car back to the corner.
Oh, okay.
So we're not going to really show too much.
Yeah.
Just as the car comes with the car, I'll cut in. I'll splice in. As the
Don't tell them
just
too
around
much,
the
Sasha.
corner.
They won't go to the movie. Yeah. Good. No, that's.
All right.
It's great.
Great. I like it.
That's all.
Yeah, I had a good look at the little, what's EV, whatever it is, one, and you know, it sort of struck me that it was a movie cam you could shoot a movie with, genuinely. I mean, you could have with any of the earlier ones, but in actual fact, if you couldn't get cooperation from like Sasha's got, it wouldn't be a great handicap to have to use that film on a production. No, and on top of that, it's light enough to put a lighter zoom than the ones they put there, and use it as a Varicam. Yeah.
I think probably the biggest thing I learned from Don, and on the editing side, I've had Craig Wood, who edited the first Sea Pirates films and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and everything. The biggest thing that I've learned from both of them is kind of the same, not to be that precious about it. Like, it just, like, it's about story. I don't know, it's just, yeah, you can sort of get, I don't know, just stuck trying to make something better because it's not good enough. But I think it's just a matter of just keep going and just get it done is the key thing. I mean, if you don't get it done, then you got nothing. You know?
Yeah.
Obsess less.
Yeah.
Less
Yeah,
obsession.
obsess less. Just do it. But yeah. Anyway.
Good.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Any questions for the guys? What we've got? No? Okay.
How many drones were lost in the making of this production?
What lens was it shot with?
Zeiss, wasn't it? Zeiss.
Carl Zeiss 21mm.
I think so, yeah, 21, yeah.
Why do you ask?
I was just standing here looking at the corners.
Oh, looking at the sharpness in the corners?
Yeah.
Or lack thereof?
Well, because it was actually on HD first time we looked at it, so I put it to 4K now. So. Pretty good though. For a
No.
drone shot.
Well, that
Free drone shot.
I mean, that to me, that's the interesting part about lenses today. I have a suspicion they're all made by the same computer program, and it's pretty hard to find much of a difference between what I call modern lenses. I mean, you hear all sorts of very deep discussions, which I find hard to follow when I use those lenses in practice. I mean, in the early days where I think lenses were actually designed by people, like people, they had a lot of faults. But now they seem to be designed by probably almost the one computer program. They're incredibly similar in results, and you get what you pay for.
Don, thank you very much. Sasha, Bob, thank you very much. Glenn, thank you for the drone shots. Guys, yeah, fantastic. Appreciate that. Also, obviously, a thank you to the ACS for hosting us again tonight, and also to our good friends at Lemac for tripods, lights, and Miller for tripods as well. Thank you guys for your support. It was nice this time not just to talk about cameras and show you cameras, but actually to show you footage. So we want to maybe revisit this again in another year, just to give you an update on where we are a year later and a year into the EVA1. The EVA1 ships in only 2 or 3 weeks' time. Lemac and our dealers will have the first Australian footage very, very early into the new year. There may still be 1 or 2 left unsold because we do have a significant shipment in the first shipment coming in, because we don't want people to be missing out. So if you want to have a look at the cameras, give us a shout and we can arrange a demo through Lemac and the dealers. So look, thanks again for coming along. Appreciate your time, and until we see you next time, thanks again.